Alright folks, we're here for Avatar: The Last Airbender. This set releases in November, and we are getting the first look previews that they typically do for like vendors and stuff. Pre-orders should be going up very soon. I'm monitoring that myself because I'd like to get some of the set if I can get it at an affordable price. But we're going to see what we've got so far, and I have to say, just based on initial reactions, I'm definitely more excited about this set than I am about Spider-Man. Now, I'm not saying that to discourage anyone that is a big fan of Spider-Man, but I don't think that set has really much exciting to offer at this point. And obviously there are still spoilers to come, but just based on initial first impressions from the two products, Avatar does feel like it has a lot more thought into it, and it feels more coherent as a set. And we've, like I said, only really seen a very small number of it, so that's kind of telling, I think, in terms of the product. So let's take a bit of a look here at these cards we've seen so far. There are some that are going to be only in the Jumpstart boosters, which are coming back for this product, and then there are some that are going to be in the regular boosters. The first three cards we're going to look at are in Jumpstart, so we'll start with those. Aang, Airbender Master, is 4 and a white legendary creature, human avatar ally. When Aang enters, airbend another target creature. To airbend, we exile the creature, and while it is exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. Whenever one or more creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white ally creature token for each experience counter you have. So, a lot of effects on this, and I think all of them are really cool. And it's important to note, again, this card is not going to be standard legal because it is in the Jumpstart, but it will very much be commander legal, and it seems like a very fun commander right off the bat. I love to see experience counters getting a bit more love. We saw it a couple years back with the Eldrazi deck, obviously decks like Azuri, so it's cool to see that mechanic getting more support in general, but airbending as a way to exile a creature and then you can bring it back is just really cool ways to like incorporate the blink effect that white really likes into some different strategies. Now, you also get experience counters whenever the creatures leave, so if you're blinking them and bringing them back, you can stack that up pretty quick, and then you make a bunch of ally tokens, and you can kind of see where this leads in terms of, generally speaking, with the stuff white has access to in terms of token doublers and triplers. This could be pretty devastating as a commander right off the bat, but I like the card, I like the airbend mechanic, and I just think overall it's really well designed. Katara, Waterbending Master, is another one from Jumpstart. This is 1 and a blue, legendary creature, human warrior ally. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, you get an experience counter. Whenever Katara attacks, you may draw a card for each experience counter you have. If you do, discard a card. This card is just generally very strong. I play Azuri in Commander, and I think Azuri will love this card just as another way to generate experience counters, but also being able to draw cards based on your experience counters is a great way to get hand resources, and this only costs 2 to play. So a really, really cool card. I don't know that it itself is going to be the best as a commander, because I think there are just other ways to build that you can utilize it better, but it's a really good card, and it seems like this Jumpstart's actually going to have powerful cards versus like the Jumpstarts we've seen in the past for set exclusives where they're just not very good. Now, the last Jumpstart card I wanted to mention is the Cabbage Merchant. This, of course, a very funny card if you're familiar with the show. It is 2 and a green, legendary creature, human citizen. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, create a food token. It's an artifact, and you know what a food token does, obviously. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, sacrifice a food token, and then you can tap 2 untapped foods you control to add a mana of any color. Plenty of decks this will slot right into with the, obviously token generation decks like Chatterfang, decks like the Hobbits from Lord of the Rings, even maybe Igra, which likes food. So definitely a really interesting card. It's pretty just generically solid and works really well with a lot of token generation strategies. So that's just good to see. These are the 3 cards that they revealed so far from Jumpstart. We're going to kind of pivot to like everything else now going to be main set stuff, but I just wanted to get those out of the way. Those will not be standard legal, but they will be playable in any Eternal format, so just something to note. You can also shuffle them up and play them just in general like Jumpstart format as it's intended for people that are new to the game. Southern Air Temple is 3 and a white, legendary enchantment shrine. When Southern Air Temple enters, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of shrines you control. Whenever another shrine you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That is a lot of words, but basically it puts counters on and enters where X is the number of shrines. So for 4 mana, if you have a good number of shrines out, you can put a lot of counters on things quickly. And then whenever you play shrines, you can ramp up counters a bit more quickly. I think it's a really solid card, actually. It's definitely good for shrines, but also only 4 mana to really be able to generate a lot of power, especially if you're playing like some kind of shrine token spam combination deck. Go Shintai obviously is another option, but there are probably a few different ways in which to take the Shrine deck, and I think people who play that deck are going to be happy to see those cards come out. We've got Earthbending Lesson. This is just a common, but I wanted to include it just to kind of see Earthbend, which says, this is 3 and a green. It says Earthbend 4. Target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste that is still a land. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield tapped. So that's what Earthbend does. Basically makes your land a creature. When it dies, it comes back tapped. That's actually pretty good because a lot of things that turn lands into creatures, you just lose the lands entirely, which is generally not the way you want to go. So I like that this mechanic is actually somewhat playable. I mean, this card is okay. It's more pack filler, I think, but maybe we'll see some other stuff with Earthbending that will make it a bit more viable. Avatar Enthusiast, just 2 and a white, creature, human, peasant, ally. Whenever another ally you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Obviously, if you're playing Aang and you make a bunch of ally tokens, you can get this very strong very quickly, though I suspect outside of ally kindred decks, this will likely just be a, a draft filler card. So, for whatever that's worth. The Rise of Sozin is an enchantment saga. It is 4 and 2 black. Destroy all creatures is its first one. Second one says choose a card name, search target opponent's hand, graveyard, and library for up to 4 cards with that name, exile them, then that player shuffles. And when it gets to the third step, you exile it, return it transformed as Firelord Sozin, who has Menace, Firebending 3, which Firebending says when this creature attacks, add, well, whatever the number is in red mana, so in this case 3. This mana lasts until end of combat. Whenever Firelord Sozin deals combat damage to a player, you may pay X. When you do, put any number of target creature cards with total mana value X or less from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Obviously, a really, really strong card. The Firebending mechanic giving you extra mana to use during combat is awesome. It plays into like combat tricks, being able to conjure fire and do stuff. Obviously, this card, in general, you're at least able to get 3, maybe more if you have more untapped mana, and it has Menace, which means it's very likely to get through. So this is going to be devastating to your opponent if you hit, because you can just basically take anything in their graveyard and bring it back as long as you have enough mana to do that. And yeah, that's going to be very problematic, I think, to deal with. But also, it's just for 6 mana, you just destroy all creatures when it first comes out. So it's actively setting up the ability to bring stuff back later. So it's a board wipe that kind of works really well with itself. And I think that's just it's a cool card, and it feels balanced, but it's also very strong. Now, Redirect Lightning is an insane card. This is 1 red mana. It's an instant lesson. As an additional cost to cast this, pay 5 life or pay 2 mana. Change the target of a target spell or ability to with a single target. So this is Deflecting Swat, not quite as good, but also kind of better in some cases. I say that because it only costs 1 mana. The 5 life is really insignificant, especially in Commander. Being able to, for that 1 mana, just have access to a Deflecting Swat effect. Plus, if you're playing Commander, you can play both. But I think this card is insanely good. It's a rare, which is surprising because it feels like it's a mythic level effect. I think it's really strong. I think red is already very strong in standard, and this card should probably be quite good in there as well. Super cool borderless variant as well. I don't know what these are called yet, but just an absolutely strong card that is a really, really good rare. And I can see most things playing red wanting to use this just to be able to protect, from removal, to be able to maybe steal some of your opponent's effects that buff stuff. I mean, we know standard and mono red was playing all kinds of stuff to buff, so being able to steal things like if Monstrous Rage was still legal, for example, would be kind of funny. But I think Redirect Lightning is already a sleeper card for the set. Fated Firepower is X and 3 red enchantment with flash. It enters with X fire counters on it. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or permanent it controls, it deals that much damage plus an amount of damage equal to the number of fire counters on this enchantment. So another damage increaser. Obviously, you can bring this out, even if it comes out with like 1 or 2, it's still decent. But flash certainly makes it nice, so you can do some combos with this during your opponent's turns as well, if you leave your mana up and give yourself some access. I do like the card, and there are decks that care about X as a value, decks like Tyranids, that can probably manipulate this value to work a bit better in their favor. Sokka's Haiku is very much not great in my opinion, but it's 3 and 2 blue, counter target spell, draw a card, then mill 3, untap target land. It does a lot, but ultimately for the mana investment, it just doesn't feel worth it. You could probably accomplish all of those effects with other cards that cost less mana and do the same thing, but I guess it is a lesson, so if there's other lesson stuff, maybe it'll play in well there. Momo Friendly Flyer is a 1-drop legendary creature, lemur bat ally with flying. The first non-lemur creature spell with flying you cast during each of your turns costs 1 less. Whenever another creature you control with flying enters, Momo gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Love the design. It's not terrible. Obviously, if you're playing a deck with a lot of flying creatures, being able to reduce their cost is certainly nice. But it feels like a better draft card if you somehow open it in draft, or maybe it'll have some potential in standard. Just on the surface, doesn't feel incredibly strong, but it's definitely not bad. They could have given it plus encounters instead. It would have probably been a little bit more powerful. But let me know what you guys think of that. And sometimes I'm very much wrong on my assessments. Appa, Steadfast Guardian, 2 and 2 white. Legendary creature, Bison ally with flash and flying. When it enters, airbend any number of other target non-land permanents you control. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So this card is insane. Now that we know airbending is exiling the creature and then you can bring it back out later for 2 mana of any color, this is basically a blanket protection card that allows you to just also trigger like leaving and ETB effects, plus giving you tokens. I think this card is just going to be wildly played in a lot of decks because it seems like an extremely powerful card on the surface. So happy to see that. I like that Appa's getting some love. Just a good card in general. We've got Sokka, Bold Boomeranger, which is just an Izzet, 1 blue, 1 red, legendary creature, human warrior ally. When it enters, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Whenever you cast an artifact or lesson, put a ++ encounter on it. All right, not terrible. You've got stuff going. You know, hand fixing is nice, cheap enough to cast. You can buff it up. It's decent. I don't know. As a commander, I mean, it's okay, but there are a lot of other options that do that better, and we may even get a different Sokka in the set that can do it, so we'll have to see. One I really like is Toph, the first Metal Bender. This is 1 red, green, white, legendary creature, human warrior ally. Non-token artifacts you control are lands in addition to their other types, which is just crazy. At the beginning of your end step, Earthbend 2. Target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste that's still a land. Put 2 ++ encounters on it. When it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield tapped. I love the earthbending being worked into this, but I also love that your artifacts become lands, so you can technically turn your artifacts into creatures, swing with them, do different things with them, and then also, like, be able to do... I think it works with vehicles and spaceships, too. Not so sure about spaceships because of the station, but definitely vehicles turn it into a creature because it is a land, and then it can swing, and you can bypass all kinds of stuff. There are a lot of really fun, I think, patterns and paths of building you can take with this card, which is super cool to see, although obviously Toph cannot. Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, is 2 white, blue, blue. Legendary creature, human warrior ally. Vigilance, when she enters, create a 1/1 white ally. And then she has Waterbend X. So Waterbending says when paying a Waterbend cost, you can tap artifacts and creatures to help. Each one pays for 1, so it's like a form of Convoke. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. So definitely interesting. Obviously, if you're playing a lot of artifacts and low-cost creatures or even tokens that you can tap, you can definitely get some use out of this. I'm guessing you're going to want to play this in some kind of like ally token spam, which is probably where the avatar from Jumpstart will slot really well as a card in Commander too. But it's not bad, and I imagine we'll get some pretty cool alternate artworks for this as well. Firelord Zuko is red, white, black. It is a legendary creature, human noble ally with firebending. Firebending X, where X is Zuko's power. So if you can buff him up, you get more red mana, which is nice. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a ++ encounter on each creature you control. This will work really well with airbending, of course, being able to exile the creatures. Definitely interesting there because it does have access to white, so you can play like the Aang and the other airbending cards we looked at in here as well. This is going to be popular. Zuko, obviously a very popular commander, very popular character rather in general. And I think they did a good job designing this. So I like this card quite a bit. Aang's Journey is a lesson. It is 2. It is a colorless with kicker 2. Search your library for a basic land. If this spell was kicked, instead search for a basic land and a shrine. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle it. You gain 2 life. Really, really good for shrines, I think, being able to get access to stuff that you need and basically pack filler anywhere else. Aang's Iceberg is the next Oblivion Ring type card we've gotten here. It's 2 and a white, enchantment with flash. When it enters, exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. And then it has Waterbend 3. Sack this enchantment if you use Scry 2. Not bad, I guess, just as an option to like get extra value out of it later. But an Oblivion Ring with flash is definitely not bad, and certainly better than some of the other options that we have in Standard, at the very least. So I do like this. I think the flash element of this does increase its playability quite a bit. And of course, we do have Avatar Aang, which we've talked about in a previous video, but just to kind of recap, now that we kind of know, it has flying and firebending 2, so when you attack, you'll get 2 mana. Whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, you draw a card. Pretty damn solid just for resource generation. And if you can do all 4 in a turn, you can transform Avatar Aang. Of course, Aang, Master of Elements, does reduce the cost of all your spells by Wooburg. There are combos with that in like Fist of Suns. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may transform it. If you do, gain 4 life. draw 4 cards, put 4 +1/+1 counters on him, and he deals 4 damage to each opponent. So a really powerful backside effect there. I do think this card's actually a lot better now that we know what the bending mechanics are. Some are easier to pull off than others, but generally speaking, they are all playable. And this is a 5-color commander because you do have the black on the back, so there is a lot to like about it. Overall, this is just the start of the Avatar reveals, but I'm super excited for the set. It feels very well designed and kind of like they put a lot of effort into actually making the set mechanics feel unique, but also true to Avatar while feeling like it belongs in Magic. So hopefully you guys feel the same. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think, and I'll catch you in the next video.